on the roots of prejudice. We'll be talking about what our prejudices are, where they came from, how they're nourished, and perhaps even how to get rid of them. Let me introduce you to the core student participants in today's discussion. From the Philippines, Raul Contreras. Raul will be 16 years old, patriotically enough, on the 4th of July. He may admit some prejudices, but one he obviously doesn't have is a prejudice against women, or he wouldn't have been willing to appear tonight with 3 women being the only male on the program. Now, on this question of prejudice, perhaps we ought to start out by trying to define what you think prejudices are. What do you think prejudice is, Ratnati?
When a person loses track of the dignity of the human soul and begins to judge others not on the basis of their being persons, but on the basis of race, creed, economic status, that is prejudice.
Well, is it fair to ask you whether you have any prejudices?
Well, I guess so, Mrs. Waller, and being brutally frank, I'm prejudiced against Japanese. Well, not to the extent that I hate them. No, not that way. But I got this, as a result of World War II. Because, I guess I was yet too young to understand what happened during those times. But I think that what my relatives and friends and the people who were witness to that unfaithful occasion, they just more than justify the fact. And I think it's justified for me to feel the same way because, I know that my people suffered very much under that rule.
You still as prejudiced against the Japanese as you were?
Well, 5 years ago, that prejudice of mine was, slightly fading away. But when Japan stubbornly refused to pay reparations to us, the prejudice began to brew again. But now I found out from close contact with Yuriko and other Japanese that Japan isn't ready to pay reparations yet, because as Yuriko said, some of them and most of them even have to suffer the cold in the classrooms because they can't afford to heat the schools.
But Nadi, let's get... Yes?
Judith, since Philippines has so many colonies and, nearly in all over the world, how do you feel towards the people in the colonies? Do you have some prejudice?
No, I personally don't have any prejudice. At least I hope I don't. But I know that a lot of Europeans think of the Asians, for example, as rather lazy. I don't mean to be rude, but that used to be the impression we had. You know, when we started our colonization, we thought we were doing good for you. I know that you dislike, for example, in Indonesia, you dislike the Dutch there. But they probably thought they were helping you.
They were not helping us. See, you mentioned that we are lazy. We are not exactly lazy, but they didn't give us a chance, and we didn't get experiments to build our country.
Well, Judy, I don't think all Asians are lazy.
No, please, you're misunderstanding me. I said that was a general opinion. Maybe not now. I hope certainly not.
General opinion, but when it's not. It's sort of wrong to say that they are lazy. Let's just say that they've got very flat feet that they can't lift them up. Because you've got to consider, for example, the climate in most of the regions in Asia. Well, it's just but natural. You can't just work with all the warm climate around you. Of course, you'd always feel like fanning yourself, or going to an air-conditioned theater or something else where it's cold.
Is there not only this difference of climate that explains a difference in tempo, but is there a difference in philosophy, too, that perhaps we in the West haven't appreciated? I wonder.
Well, as far as I know it, and, I think you've mentioned it in this program, that Indians think that they should never soil their hands. And in the Philippines, I must admit that, we're sort of inclined to get white-collar jobs and swivel chairs. Most of us do, especially the new college graduates. We don't want to work with our hands. We want to have, big bosses and with pretty secretaries around us. That's the common tendency.
I'm sorry, Ralph.
Well, I was about to ask them, what do they think are the most common or basic causes of our prejudices? Is it mainly skin color?
Well, maybe. Do you mean, for example, taking the American people in the South?
I guess taking the American side of it, it's just that the white people don't want to mix themselves up with the colored ones.
But what about the colored people? Perhaps they don't want to mix with the white people either.
What about, since you brought up the American race problem, I'd like to ask a minute, Raul, are there any prejudices in the Philippines between groups of people?
Yes, there are existing prejudices between groups of people. As a matter of fact, most of us still, are prejudiced against a group of hybrids, those who have more Spanish blood than Filipino blood in them, and we term them as mestizos. These incidents usually occur in the schools. As you know, I'm in a school run by Spanish monks, and we have a lot of those of that group studying in our school, and usually they are favored. But we think that we are right in saying that they are sort of aristocratic, conceited, and high-headed, and sore-headed, and all sorts of adjectives, and they have the foolish idea that they have the royal blood or royalty in them.
Well, how do you get along with these boys in school, Raul? Are there any problems?
Well, frankly speaking, I don't get along with them pretty well. As a matter of fact, we usually fight with one another.
Is it as bad as you thought it was going to be before you came, or is it better or worse?
Well, I think it's what I've seen here and what I've heard while I am here and what I have read in the newspapers, it's just worse than I expected.
Don't you agree, Judith?
No, I don't agree.
Adding something to that, isn't it that, in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, you mentioned something about, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the last phrase just doesn't suit everything. I mean, with this segregation problem here and the discrimination against colored people, how in the world could you have liberty and justice for all? And in one of my hospitality periods, I didn't expect that even the kids could carry it that far. I had the privilege, I should say, of attending one of the dances sponsored by one of the civic groups. And I just noticed that, it was a big dance floor, and all the white kids were assembled on the left side, and the most, shall we say, not strategic part of the ballroom, all the colored boys and girls were in there. And I never saw a white boy asking a colored girl for a dance, nor did I see a colored boy asking a white girl for a dance.
I had enough
colored people.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, is there anything corresponding to that in...
Well, I think so, Mrs. Waller, because in the Philippines, it's just funny. There's a common tendency among women, those who have a dark complexion, I should say, or just a tanned one, or just a brown complexion. Especially these high society matrons. Even if they've got already wrinkles on their face, they still want to bleach their skin. Suppose you meet one right now and you say, "Oh, good morning," and you see that she's just tanned and brown. But after 3 months, you meet the same person, and with the usual society walk, and trying to be very dignified and cultured and everything. And you just notice that her face was lighter than before. And when you look at her hands and everything up to her arms, you'll be likable to exclaim, "Holy Moses," because there's a real, very great difference, you see. She's about very light here, but you look at the arms and everything, and the lower part of the body, but gee, it's just a very great difference. It's colored here, but it's very light.
They really bleach their skins?
They do, Mrs. Waller.
What about Japan? Does that Japanese? I wanted to have time to ask you what you thought individuals could do in terms of eradicating prejudice. But our time's almost up. Anybody got a quick answer?
Well, I guess we should carefully examine the individual first before passing any judgment on him. And if we ever pass a judgment, we should be just with it.